Try not to be afraid. By all means, vote. And regardless of the outcome, remember that America is a country of civility where people come because they can live in peace. My name is Charles M. Honeyman. I'm a retired United States immigration judge. I retired in January after more than 24 years of service as an immigration judge, first in New York from 1995 to 2001, and thereafter for 18 plus years in Philadelphia. Immigration courts are not that way. They're not a part of the judicial branch of government. They're part of the executive branch, and there are no public defenders. If an individual cannot afford a lawyer and cannot get a private attorney to work out some arrangement with them on paying fees gradually, or there's no nonprofit organization which is authorized to represent people in immigration court, to represent the individual. If they can't find anyone, they may be representing themselves, and that's called going forward pro se, that is for yourself. Immigration judges are executive branch administrative law judges who are appointed by the Attorney General of the United States, who is, in fact, a political appointee. Now, the immigration judges are, legally speaking, what are called career attorneys. They're career appointments, which means that politics is not supposed to be involved in their appointment, in theory. And for much of our history, in the history of immigration judges, that has been true. And the temptation to try to use political considerations in the selection of immigration judges has been restrained and resisted by most presidents and attorney generals. The influence of certain appointed attorney generals has meant that this political impact on selections and decisions in many ways that we'll talk about has now had a political taint like never before in our history. As we know, as we've learned growing up in school, there's the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch. The legislative branch, federally, is the United States Congress, the Senate and House of Representatives. The judicial branch are, at the federal level, are the United States District Courts, the Circuit Courts of Appeal. Then there's the executive branch, which we often think of as the president, and we know the president has a cabinet, and these are appointed secretaries that are the politically appointed heads of agencies, such as the Department of Justice, the Department of Homeland Security, Department of Education, Energy, all of these cabinet level positions. Now, immigration judges, you would think the word judge, for most people out there not familiar too much with this area of law and policy, think, well, judges are part of the judicial branch. Well, there are administrative law judges that are called immigration judges, are unique in that their direct supervisor, in theory, is the Attorney General of the United States. And despite what I said before about immigration judges being career appointees, meaning there are civil service appointees that are not supposed to be appointed because of politics, you see the irony there is because the person appointing them is a political appointee himself. Well, there's another component called the Executive Office for Immigration Review in the Justice Department. And that's comprised of the immigration courts, the Board of Immigration Appeals, which are this body that hears appeals from the immigration court decisions, and another branch that deals with citizenship discrimination and violations by employers of regarding hiring unlawful aliens, people who don't have permission to be in this country or to work. So the Executive Office for Immigration Review, most importantly for this discussion, is the entity that manages the immigration courts. After the 9/11 attacks and the decision to create the Department of Homeland Security, all of the immigration functions were taken out of the Department of Justice, except the immigration courts and the BIA and that other component. So now you have a situation where the Department of Homeland Security's functions are not court related or appeals related, they're enforcement related directly. And what I mean by that is ICE, which is the Immigration and Customs Enforcement component, has both lawyers and what I would describe as police-like enforcers. Homeland Security has USCIS. So that's the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services. And they're the agencies that decides applications for benefits relating to employment authorization, applications for permanent residence, various temporary and permanent visa statuses. And then there's something called CBP, that's Customs and Border Patrol. And as it implies, that name suggests a function at the border to protect the border and also to screen individuals who are applying for admission to the United States. And they also obviously apprehend individuals who cross the border without permission. So that's kind of how the structure breaks down. The impact that the Attorney General's had, and the individuals advising the Attorney General from the White House and other parts of the bureaucracy, at the orders of the president and those that are advising the president about immigration issues, has resulted in a tilt of the appointments in a way which is designed to ideologically affect the philosophy of how law is interpreted. And as we know, across all areas of law, and people might be most familiar with the Supreme Court, that you're going to have a spread of opinions and how you interpret the law. It's not so simply a left-right issue, but it's often described that way. So you might have him, and so what this administration has done more than any before is to believe that if they make appointments from individuals of certain backgrounds, they're likely going to appoint people who are going to be more inclined to take a very restrictive or narrow interpretation of the law and deny many more cases in applications for benefits people are seeking than otherwise. So the Attorney General has that power through appointment. Lastly, the Attorney General of the United States, through an unusual statutory provision and regulation, is literally allowed to take precedent decisions, that is, decisions that bind the immigration judges from the Board of Immigration Appeals. These are reported decisions that have been thoroughly evaluated by this board, and literally rewrite them if they're inconsistent with the new political philosophy of this administration. Now, the danger in that, of course, is that the existence of that provision in the law that has been taken advantage of by this administration more than any in the history of the country, is to basically have a particular administration's ideology and philosophy about different aspects of immigration law lead to a reversal of decisions and cases that have represented the state of the law for decades. And why is that dangerous? Because you could have another administration of another political party that could end up doing the same thing and say, well, we don't like what this Attorney General has done. We think that we're going to reverse all of that and rewrite all the decisions back to where they were or in some other way. This has called some to refer to the Attorney General as a Supreme Court of one, because the Attorney General doesn't really have to answer to anybody except the circuit court. The power is tremendous, and it raises a real question, because I said both parties could take advantage of this regulation. It raises a question that many now have as to whether or not the immigration courts and the Board of Immigration Appeals should even be in the Department of Justice. So that's a fairly long description of the vast powers that the Attorney General has. I would hope that you would think carefully about the substance of what some some running for election are able to articulate about plans and policies that would be on balance good for the American economy, and not succumb to fear. And I know that many people are generally afraid that changes could have a negative impact on them. And if their community looks a little different or is more diverse, that somehow it's going to take jobs from them and is going to make life more difficult. This is called scapegoating, but it's just not justified as a matter of fact. And I would like you all to take a deep breath and step back and think about where your families came from and people you may have intersected with over the years who've made contributions to this country, and to look to the spirit of your faith traditions and step back from hatred and keep an open mind toward a country that you'll be proud to live in, that will not be driven by hatred and will be that beacon to the world.